you're going to figure it out from the way that I speak about it, that the problem I'm describing is a very minor problem, right? And one of the reasons why I'm saying this is there might be a reason for another companies or another media group like Gamers Nexus to be formed in the real soon to be future. The reason is Gamers Nexus has been taking on quite a lot of big companies, and one of the things that big companies like to do to individuals who give them trouble is they like to slap suit them. And you might not think this is such a big deal, but I can give it to you in this way. Imagine tomorrow Gamers Nexus doesn't put out any videos. We don't get a video from them for 6 months to a year, and that is because they were stuck in legal jurisprudence where they've been accused of defamation, even though they have all the facts, and they've been accused of violation of NDA and contract violations in civil suits. Now, yes, this here can be done even when you have legal ways around it, and it has happened to a lot of companies. The only reason why I'm making this video is I'm hoping that somebody else will take on a role similar to Gamers Nexus and fill in the little spots where I say that they lack. And all you're going to have is a similar role to Gamers Nexus, and should they go down, you can do similar things to Gamers Nexus in the period while they down for slap suits or something of the sort. Just to be honest, I am a single individual doing my YouTube. Compared to Gamers Nexus, I don't hold a candle. In terms of qualification, yes, I can compare in 2 or 3 fields within the IT realm, but I can't compare in a much wider realm of IT. That is all the information technology. Instead of saying it as IT, I should have said in the tech industry. I am also an electrical class engineer and a mechanical class engineer. I'm also in the civil class of engineers, to make it a real odd space for me to fall into as a 3-piece engineer. So yes, I am a weird situation, but I am not a complete engineer in a certain sense, although I do have enough credentials to count as an engineer at the moment. So yeah, that's how it will go. So let's talk about the problem at Gamers Nexus, and I have to give that in because people will say, how can you complain about a company when you don't understand anything about the industry? So let's go with everything that has to be said about Gamers Nexus. So Gamers Nexus is this channel here, right? Gamers Nexus. This is the guy we're talking about at the heart of everything, Steve, right? So this is confronting Newegg face to face. This was one of the things where they really championed for the consumer base, and this is the reason why I'm really going at this here. They've decided to take on EK, and EK has level threats back at them. So I'm suspecting that they're going to get slap-suited a little bit, and they're going to have that problem. This is also another one. They took on Linus Tech Tips. Now, Linus Tech Tips was quite a heavy hit for them. They did lose quite a bit of sponsors, if I'm correct, thanks to this year, because Linus has a lot of contacts in a lot of different areas, and that may have just gave them a little bit of a up and down, gave them a little bit of a smack, and it actually helped Linus Tech Groups really massively. I'd like to see the two of them talk again and see what happens since then, but I also doubt that Linus is going to have any guts to talk to them in quite a while, because they don't take any hostages. They simply go in guns blazing, and they simply take in every piece of information they can get their hands on. So the next one is the Artesian Bulls. Artesian Bulls, Noah Katz, he tried to get them to go a different route from where they were going with the reporting, and yeah, that turned into another massive story that they broke. As you can see, the size of these companies is quite large. Noah Katz, if I'm correct, did slap suit them, but considering that this is only a small size company compared to EK, who, if I remember correctly, has a couple 100 million evaluation. So yeah, I wouldn't want to see them take those type of slap suits, right? Because they can also impose a media sanction against them, stopping them from posting videos for a period of time, or posting any articles until they have completed a trial, dependent on whether they can defame them or deface them in the public light. These are things that they can slap them with, and I don't think they've been slapped with those as yet. Now, yeah, let's just go and have a look at the channel directly, just to show you some things. for this year. As you can see, their viewership isn't totally huge, and I would love to see them hit 10 billion or more as their subscriber count. The reason for that is quite simple. As I said, they help a lot of people, and yeah, here's all of their contents, just so that you can see that I'm talking about this Gamers Nexus. Right, because there are other places where you're going to get Gamers Nexus. Obviously, the way they worded their name, you might be thinking that they are a gaming channel, but they are not a gaming channel. They are, in fact, a tech channel. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritties on the next part of this year. Where are the problems within their group? Well, number one, their big problem is something which I just touched on, and that is the fact that they keep touching the tigers of the industry. Now, the tigers of the industry are definitely going to play nasty and hard. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we have people who are journalists who generally don't like to get involved with the big companies because they play a little bit dirty. When they get defamed or when they get caught out for something nasty, they'll play with slap suits, and they'll also play with embargoes, sanctions, and all of these things within their contact groups. Now, a group like EK, you might say they're not that big, but maybe one of the guys on their board is a multi-billionaire and has assets that are across several dozen companies. And he can go and he can say, you know what, all of us are not going to support Gamers Nexus now. They ruined $75 million of mine. I know that sounds a bit nasty, but it is the way that it would be. So yeah, they can end up having a whole group of media industry attack them, accuse them of trying to solicit corruption or attempting to do a whole load of other items. Yes, they can defend against that quite easily, but no, it doesn't mean they're safe. That means that they're going to have to go through cases and trials, and they're going to subpoena their team and subpoena all of them to appear in court. They're going to waste time in court providing evidence that the possibility of them taking bribes is a possibility from other industries or other companies to lower them down. They could even say that the Chinese spy agents is one of the methods of pulling them down, because they do go to China and they do go through markets. And this is just where some of that issue will come in. The ability to slap suit a person or lay false charges against them is quite possible in this case, especially when people are going to dig back at them and they're going to expose that they've had industrial dealings with Chinese companies and Taiwanese companies, and the possibility of CCP espionage coming in through some of their channels is a possibility, so they might even have those accusations laid against them. As I said, it's a possibility. It does not mean that anything has actually happened, so don't take it in the wrong way. Now, these are things which can be laid as allegations against them, and they most probably would clear it up within about a month or two, but that would really leave the customer base, their viewer base, without that critical piece of information. If you're talking about the charts, yeah, you can compare the charts from Jace 2 Cents and Linus Media Group. You can compare the charts from Tom's Hardware, from forgetting the name. There's so many of these companies. Actually watch about half a dozen, but nonetheless you can view a lot of these and you're going to get enough of information to be able to make your decision on what to buy. You can even watch Greg Saraza, and I believe that he has a good metric that not even Gamers Nexus uses. He compares three things: the current cost, the recommended selling cost, and the resale cost against the market value, the market estimated price, and the current selling price. And then he comes up with these charts where you get three lines and they all correspond on a single chart, and you get to see what is actually the cost of each item and where they fare in relevance to each other. For example, the 4090 will be sitting in La La Land right at the top of the chart right now, and then where the 4080 is, you'll get AMD and a whole lot of other cards all within the mishmash, all falling into that category, and you can see which one is actually the cheapest by when they fall lower on the line. So as they fall more to the right of the chart and lower on the line, you'll get the best value to your actual items. They're actually using calculus there. It's just complicated to explain that calculus, so I don't want to explain it to you. They're using a derivative formula to find the reverse xy axis, and that is how you find the best value. You use the reverse xy, not the forward xy, because the forward xy will actually hitch on the first item and some of the more expensive items at the exact same time, making it quite a problematic graph to use, while the other one will actually keep hitting only those which are in a value structure on one side of that line. Because as it starts from 0, it will start showing you nothing, and then all of a sudden you'll start getting value items based on whatever is being said. So yeah, that's the way that it will go. I know that was quite a long-winded item to actually explain, but that's how hard it is to explain the graphs. Now, Gamers Nexus explains everything that they do within their suits. I've actually sat through about 6.5 hours of viewing their videos to look through all of those chart explanations, and I do know that what I am saying is something that they expressly say they can do, but they won't because it is a waste of time. And I do agree with that sentiment. It is a waste of time 90% of the time. But if you aren't Gamers Nexus, it isn't going to be a waste of time, and I'll explain that as well. So here is the next part to this. So when it comes to their charts, they will look at frequency versus time, they will look at frequency versus frame rate, they will look at overclocking and regular, they will look at the I'm just going off all of the basic metrics, FPS, render times, performance, efficiency, and they won't go cost to lifespan efficiency. Now that is a different story altogether, and that is quite a complicated item. Most of your items have a rating for their lifespan. You may not know this about electronics, but all electronics have a rated lifespan. For example, batteries have between 300 to 6,000 cycles on the standard run batteries. That's batteries that you can get for your phones, for your laptops, for any item basically within the rechargeable space. 300 to 6,000 is the standard usage. Some batteries can have up to 20,000 cycles, and some can go way higher. But they also have a degradation term on them, and they actually all explained within their standard functionality. They give you all of these on what you call the electronics sheet. It's part of electrical engineering for microchip engineers. They'll understand exactly what I'm saying. And yes, that is one of the reasons why it isn't used in those, because most people who will build a computer aren't microchip engineers. This isn't their level. And on that side, there are also other things they could do which would hurt companies like Nvidia, hurt companies like Apple, hurt companies like Microsoft. A whole lot of these companies can get hurt real badly. And I'm not gonna exactly say that it's a bad thing that they don't do it, but it is something that they could do if they really wanted to. And here's the reality behind it. If Gamers Nexus went ahead tomorrow and went to Taiwan, and in Taiwan they decided, we're going to investigate, sorry, this is quite a complex one to say, we're going to investigate the price of individual components on a microchip board and the microchip board cost, right? If they go to board partners, they're going to get ridiculous. They're going to say it costs $23 to get this one piece of board, right? And yeah, that is quite heavy, and they're going to say all the components which go on it cost $100. Whoa, that is insane. But if you go around and you hit manufacturers for the components, they'll tell you, oh, circuit boards at meter by meter with the circuit inlay costs us about $4 to a meter. And when you hear that, then all of a sudden the prices seem a little bit more ridiculous, because all they've got to do is cut. And once they cut it out of those templates, they now have a meter worth of 4090s. That's what, 3 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5, 3 by 4. So it's either 12 or 15. So they have 15 chips at $5 a piece, right? That's a 1 meter by 1 meter, $5. So yeah, when you think about that price, it's 5 divided by 15. It's quite ridiculous to even think about the price. It's not 30 cents in case you're thinking that, because 30 cents times 10 is 3 times 5 is 15. That would be $4.50. It's more than 30 cents. So yeah, don't doesn't go so low, and if it's at 12, it's more than 40 cents. It's quite a reasonable amount of pricing. But yeah, that's what the board cost them. And then when you think about the microchips, yeah, it's costing them about 20-30 cents for each of the regular units. And then all of a sudden we get the cost units. The cost units is when you get your RAM items. Your RAM items, because they are from specific manufacturers, they won't be able to give you the bulk price on production, but you will get a roundabout figure where they tell you that once this production line of 100 and some odd thousand is done, it's going to cost you somewhere in the range of about $5 to a chip, or $10 to a chip. And you count it, there's 16 on a board, 10 times 16, 160. That's a 4090, 160 plus $10 board, 160, 170. Then the CPU comes in with its silicone and the multiple layers and the stacking at another $20. So you're looking at about $190 for a $2,000 chip set, right? That's the complete item with the rest of the items added onto it. And you can imagine if they give us just raw PCBs, I'd be more than willing to buy the water cooling blocks and water cool it. It's going to be ridiculously cheap if they did that. Well, no, they'll never ever do that there. They'll lose money like crazy because people won't know how to set them up correctly, and they might not heat trace them correctly, causing other problems in later parts of the design. So yeah, that's why they won't do that there. And in case you're thinking they can just have a sponged out version so that it's all level, yeah, they can do that, but once again, that's just going to add small amounts of costs at $1 or $2, and they're going to want to make profit. So yeah, you could get a 4090 for $500. In reality, if you're looking at the raw price of chips and the raw price of everything that goes onto a chipboard, that's about what it is. And Gamers Nexus can expose that true cost. Now, I am saying this here as within relevance. It is within relevance for quantity. Now, you have to understand that quantity might be up to 1 million per production, and I don't know if they produce 1 million of each card at a time. If they do produce 1 million of each card at a time, yeah, it's a massive undertaking in terms of expense, and selling it out will take a phenomenal amount of time. Because even though you may think 1 million 4090s isn't that much, 1 million 4090s is way more than most of the markets around the world for that class of chip. And yeah, that says that Nvidia makes over 1,000% on your cards. That's how they managed to get into AI so quickly. But yeah, breaking off on that point, there is something they can do. They can show the raw cost of components, which is very detrimental, as I said, because it can show that and anybody else who can get along with the contact list similar to Gamers Nexus can actually go to, say, for example, Shenzhen, China, and talk to the manufacturers and factories and find out the price of microchips, and they'll give you a cost on 120,000, 200,000 capacitors, ICs, all of these items which are in the same rating as what you get on your boards. And when you hear the figures, there's 100,000 at 3 cents a piece, 100,000 at 3 cents a piece. Let's see, that's 300,000 cents divided by 100. That's $3,000 for 100,000 of these. How many go on the board? 50. Oh yeah, that's a joke. 50 times 3. Well, there we go. It's 3 times 5, $1.50 for this one IC. Then the capacitors, yeah, there we go. $2 worth of capacitors, $4 worth of capacitors, all the other items which are needed, processing units here and there which are small and mass manufactured. There are processing units which we call bridges. They are actually a minor processing unit. They don't have those high gigahertz cores like your central units, and they don't have processing power in the same way. All they allow for is quick transfer between networks, and that is what you actually call your brain sets on your chip. So they will communicate between the actual chipset and the RAM. They will make sure that everything is compiling correctly so that there's a good flow in and out, and they'll make sure that that doesn't get mixed up. That is the function of those bridge chips, and they can get a little bit expensive but not as ridiculous as one might think. So yeah, that's one thing that you could do in place of what Gamers Nexus does. And yeah, if they really wanted to hurt Nvidia, they could show the cost of their boards. They could show the cost of all their items, including the cost of their Ada Lovelace or whatever it is. And I might be wrong on my costing. I might say that it costs them $20 or $30, and it could cost them $50 or $100 to a core because they don't produce in big enough amounts, or they could be producing in big enough amounts and I might be overcharging on it at $20 and it could be a $5 chip. And when those types of things come out, you can destroy companies, which is something I don't think they want to do. So yeah, that might be something for someone else to do. Go and compare the raw electronics within a board. They can even do that for your motherboards, for your auxiliary cards, for everything. And I do know some of those costs are within reason. I think that I estimate that cost being a little bit high in consideration, because when I think about most of those boards and what the items are, if I had to order it on my sets through Chinese manufacturers in the quantities of thousands, I wouldn't even end up that expensive, and that's just being honest. That's just the raw components on a board for a 4090 or 4080. That's excluding the chips, right? The chips are your brains. Those are a little bit more expensive, and some of them are pretty particular because they have to be a very specific type in order to handle those type of processes. So yeah, that is one of the things that I found out. You might be thinking about where else can you find out about these types of things. Well, when you interfere with things like Arduino, when you interfere with things like Raspberry Pi, you end up finding all of these little components that are really dirt cheap, and you make up your transfer board or your switching boards on the side with rough cutting boards. These rough cutting boards mean that you have a little bit longer traces, and you can end up patching together quite a big circuit on these patch boards. And that's how you can create your own processing cards on the side. Then you just have to trace your passages from your CPUs into those boards, and you can just make strips that plug into a motherboard, or you can make your own motherboard and download software to make it look like it's someone else's motherboard, and you're getting the whole idea. They dirt cheap in general reference. Okay, moving on to the next part of this video. I did mention a little bit about benchmarks. So within the benchmarks, there does lie a particular ability to do special types of benchmarking. Instead of doing 2D graphs, you can actually do 3D graphs or multivariable graphs. Now, multivariable graphs are graphs which overlay with each other. So you can have a ghost bar on a solid bar, and this here can show the cost effectiveness. And cost effectiveness is something which is really dependent on how you're going to use it. For example, if you have this high FPS item which has a super fast render time, you can go with its efficiency on top of the render time, and you can have its electrical efficiency. You can have lifespan, cost, and cost of electricity per usage unit, and go with the complex costing and bring it down to every second of usage that it goes through, and you can end up with a perfect costing on what it actually costs to run your card per second, because that has to actually be saved and reinvested into your PC over a period of time. Most people will never reach their PC's run lifespans because most of those components have 500 to 1,000,000 hours of usage. So yeah, most of your PC components are going to last you quite long, so don't really stress so much about those items. So yeah, that's one of the things that could be done for a special graph. And the simple reason why Gamers Nexus doesn't do it is as follows. If you're going to go with render timers, you're talking about video editors. A video editor, looking at it for that render time, is just one little piece of information that he wants to know between the RTX 7800 and the 4080 Super. Looking at the two, looking at the small margins and gaps that you can get, you're looking at it, you're not going to overclock, so you're going standard, so you're going to do a non-overclocked menu, and you look at the two, oh yeah, there's it, the RTX comes out with a little bit lower of a render time, but it also comes out with a way better efficiency. It's about 1/3 the efficiency of a 4080. So yeah, I'd rather go with this card. It's cheaper, its power utility is lower, it's got less of a risk. If I go with the 4080, you know what, I'm getting more fast response times on my renders, but I'm not rendering 1,000 videos a day. I'm not rendering 100 videos a day. Those are exaggerations. and yeah, those are things which will be to their detriment or to their advantage. You even find this here from De Beers, not De Beers, De Bauer, sorry, I'm giving the wrong company. De Bauer actually had this here mentioned when he was making a computer for one of his friends. They do rendering for their company, and he actually downscaled the hardware inside the computer, and that's because they don't do ridiculous scale production. They only do minor scale production. So this is me saying that you can actually do the exact same thing and get away with far more than just a little bit of a bump on a small little item, because 2 or 3 seconds doesn't really help anything for small videos. For large format or high quality videos, yeah, it's gonna make a difference of about a minute or 2 minutes, but that still doesn't hurt you. If you're going ridiculous times like a 4-hour compression and then re-ratioed and uploading all at one go from one piece of software, yeah, that might make a slight difference of about a 10 to 20 minute window frame, but it's not really important. And the difference in cost, for example, I can go with AMD Threadripper Pro at $4,000. I can go with actually, I believe there's a faster non-consumer board, an industrial class graphics card board that could be used at the same rate as those for that particular functionality, and I would get away with way better performance with the slightly higher cost as well. So it'll be like $4,000 for the chip, the thread chip of $5,000, and a $6,000 graphics card. That's $11,000 with the $2,000 motherboard, which is going to add to that $2,000. A massive double power supply at about $500 for the particular type of system we're working with. That's going to give us another $1,000 to that there, plus we're going to need utility for backup power, another $1,000. We're going to need a case for it. Are we going to use server? Are we going to use standard? Most probably going to go server. Are we going to use rack mounted, or we're going to do standard mount? Are we going to use big block case? Are we going to use industrial case? Are we going to use consumer case? As you can see, the questions go on, and that they will just rocket up your cost against a $3,500, $2,500 computer. You're talking about the difference between a $20,000 and $3,000 computer. That's the difference between night and day. You can buy a pre-built server for about $15,000, which will come out cheaper than what you were going to buy there, with hardware in the exact same range of performance, water cooled, everything all set up for you for a server mounted PC rack. And yeah, that's just the obvious parts to playing. Now, when it comes to those tables, as I said, they only for these things, and you can say that there's level 1 tech, but they don't actually, or is it level 2 tech? I'm not 100% sure, but they don't actually cover this particular group of items. They cover something similar, but they don't actually cover it within that particular frame. So here is the honest answer. If you're going to come up and you're going to actually compete in the exact same market as Gamers Nexus, all you're going to do is give yourself 3D tables. The reason for those 3D tables is they still have the same representations as Gamers Nexus, but your third item being referenced on them in the exact same frame is actually going to give you the ability to now push yourself one up on that entire list. While you show the list in one format, you can show it in 3 other formats, then you can move to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, completing every single table that could be possibly compromised and put together. So for engineers, for video editors, for gamers, for high-end gamers, for streamers, for recording only streamers, because there's a difference between streaming and recording. Streaming requires pathways out of the PC to be fast as well as pathways in. Recording only requires pathways in to be fast and internal processing to be fast. You don't require external processing to be as fast. So yeah, those are going to give you very big differences in what you're going to use, and they can have a far more customizable channel for you. So yeah, those are the groups that I have with Gamers Nexus. As I said, I don't really have a problem with Gamers Nexus, and the title of this video was merely to explain that there are things that can be improved and can be used to give us another Gamers Nexus. And yes, this is for the fear that Gamers Nexus might disappear for a few weeks or months with the following challenges that they might face against EK. If Gamers Nexus sees this and I am totally irrelevant, please don't do anything to me. I'm just trying to look out for your viewer base, and you know what, that's all that this is about. I doubt that this is going to be big enough for it to be picked up by many people. You might see it and have a good laugh at it. If you think that the message is valuable and usable, by all means repost it as your own video, retweet on your own. There's no need to reference me whatsoever. I'd actually be happy to see that there. All you've got to do is say that some elements of this video were deleted, and I'll delete my video the moment you post yours up. And that's just the way that it goes. Honestly, I hope that everybody who watches this here thinks about doing something similar to Gamers Nexus. Thank you for giving me your time, and hopefully I'll never see you on another one of these again. Bye.